Today, we're diving beyond the headlines into a conflict that, well, it continues to fundamentally reshape nations, ignite economic battles globally, and really push the boundaries of modern warfare, all amidst some pretty shifting diplomatic tides. Today is August 17th, 2025, and the Russo-Ukrainian War, it just rages on. We're nearly a decade after its initial spark and, over 3 years since the full-scale invasion began.
Yeah, it's easy to forget how long this has actually been going on.
Exactly. And this isn't just some distant geopolitical event you read about. It's become a crucible for immense human suffering and, honestly, a kind of laboratory for the future of global power dynamics.
That's a good way to put it, a laboratory.
Consider this. By mid-September 2024, our sources indicate this war had already resulted in, well, up to 1 million casualties.
Wow.
And that's killed and injured. It's a truly staggering human cost.
It really is.
And beyond the battlefield, it's triggered Europe's largest refugee crisis since the 1990s Yugoslav wars, displacing millions of people.
And what really stands out, I think, looking at how this conflict keeps evolving, is just how dramatically the international responses have shifted, especially, as new factors come into play.
Right.
You've seen these incredible economic stakes emerge. Ukraine's raw material stocks, for instance, valued at over $26 trillion. That holds immense strategic potential.
26 trillion.
Yeah, and the cost of the war itself is hitting Russia incredibly hard, too. Some estimates put their losses at around $1.3 trillion by 2025.
A heavy price. And then you add in the dramatic entry of new technologies, like these advanced drones. They're literally reshaping battlefield tactics.
Absolutely.
We're talking deep strike operations like Operation Spider's Web and the emergence of things like fiber optic drones. We'll get into that.
That's key.
Add to this the complex, and let's face it, often controversial foreign policy shifts from the second Trump administration, oscillating between aid pauses and then new weapons packages. And you realize this isn't just news. It's a deep, interconnected story with profound implications for all of us. So what does this all mean for the global stage and, well, for you as we navigate this really complex world?
That's the big question.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the Russo-Ukrainian War. We're drawing from multiple sources you provided. Our mission, really, is to extract the most critical insights, cut through some of the noise, and help you understand the profound humanitarian, economic, and geopolitical consequences of this conflict, especially as it stands right now in mid-2025.
Okay.
We'll explore that staggering human cost, the intense economic battle for resources, those ever-changing international responses, particularly from the U.S. under President Trump, and the new technological realities of modern warfare.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Well, perhaps no insight is more critical or honestly more heartbreaking than just the sheer scale of human suffering this conflict has unleashed.
Right.
As I mentioned, our sources highlight up to 1 million casualties killed and injured by mid-September 2024.
1 million. It's almost abstract, so large.
It is. And to break that down a bit, let's look at the latest estimates for military losses specifically. For Russia, Medusa estimated over 165,000 Russian soldiers died by the end of 2024.
Okay.
While The Economist put Russian soldiers killed or wounded much higher, somewhere between 462,000 and 728,000 by July 2024.
That's a huge range, but even the low end is massive.
It is, and that latter figure, it suggests something really stark. Approximately 2% of all Russian men aged 20 to 50 may have been killed or seriously wounded.
2%.
Yeah. That isn't just a grim statistic. It paints this stark picture of a potential demographic crisis brewing for Russia. I mean, impacting everything from its future workforce to social stability for generations.
That's a powerful point. What does that level of loss mean for a nation's ability to rebuild, even if the conflict were to somehow end tomorrow? It's profound.
It really is. And on the Ukrainian side, President Zelensky stated that 43,000 Ukrainian soldiers were killed and 370,000 wounded by December 2024.
Okay, so lower KIA, but still very high wounded numbers.
Right, and he noted about half of the wounded were returning to duty. An update from February 2025 saw that toll rise slightly over 46,000 killed and 380,000 wounded. And there's another source, the ULosses Project, which documents fighter deaths by name. They confirmed 73,920 Ukrainian fighter deaths as of August 2025.
So different sources, slightly different numbers, but all pointing to just devastating losses on both sides. The sheer disparity in some of these numbers, though, and what they might suggest about combat intensity, it's striking.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And then the civilians caught in this tragedy.
Yeah.
From 2014 to 2022, during the conflict in Donbass, 3,404 civilians were killed, mostly in that first year.
Right, pre-full invasion.
Exactly. But since the full-scale invasion in 2022, the UN Human Rights Office confirmed a minimum of 13,580 civilians killed and 34,115 wounded by June 2025.
A minimum, so likely higher.
Very likely. U.S. officials had estimated even higher numbers much earlier, like 42,000 Ukrainian civilian deaths by May 2023.
42,000?
And the toll on children. It's especially heartbreaking. Over 200 children killed by April 2022. That rose to 461 killed and 923 wounded by February 2023.
Oh, that's just awful.
Just let those numbers sink in for a moment.
Yeah.
This isn't just about military strategy, is it? It's about individual lives, families shattered, communities changed forever. It really forces us to confront the true personal cost of geopolitics.
Absolutely. And beyond the raw numbers of killed and wounded, we have to talk about the documented atrocities and the human rights violations that have really marked this conflict.
Yes, definitely. The sources highlight severe human rights violations, and they note predominantly by Russian forces since the 2022 invasion. This includes deliberate attacks on civilian targets, massacres, torture, rape, including reports involving women and children, and indiscriminate attacks in populated areas.
Just horrific accounts coming out.
Grim evidence. Places like Bucha and the Kyiv region, where over 1,200 civilian bodies were discovered, some apparently summarily executed. We also see reports of forced deportations, thousands of civilians, including children, taken to Russia, and systematic attacks on Ukrainian medical infrastructure. The WHO reported a staggering 1,422 attacks by December 2023.
Attacking hospitals. It's a clear violation.
And the UN Human Rights Office claimed that by August 2024, 95% of Ukrainian prisoners of war reported suffering torture by Russian forces.
95%.
And in the occupied territories, Russia is accused of imposing enforced Russification. It seems like a systematic policy aimed at integrating these areas by basically erasing Ukrainian identity and culture.
How does that manifest?
Well, measures like indoctrinating children with Russian narratives, actively suppressing the Ukrainian language and cultural expression, even coercing Ukrainians into taking Russian passports.
It's about control, not just territory, but identity itself.
Exactly. And this scale of human suffering, it naturally leads to massive displacement. It's created a humanitarian crisis of historic proportions.
Absolutely. The 2022 invasion caused the largest refugee and humanitarian crisis in Europe since the 1990s Yugoslav wars. Over 7.4 million refugees by September 2022 alone. The human cost is just. It's immeasurable. It's reshaping not just Ukraine, but the demographics, the social fabric of neighboring European nations, too.
A ripple effect felt everywhere. So beyond the human tragedy, which is immense, the economic impact of this war reverberates across the globe. It's reshaping markets, and interestingly revealing some hidden strategic interests.
Yeah, and a key aspect that really comes through in our sources is how natural resources emerge as a pretty clear motive, or at least a major factor, in Russia's actions. It demonstrates that profound link between conflict and potential economic gain.
Indeed, our sources estimate Russia's own economic losses from the war itself and Western sanctions at around $1.3 trillion by 2025.
That's a huge hit to their economy.
Huge. And the direct financial expenditure for Russia just conducting the war was estimated at $250 billion as of autumn 2024.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's economy, well, it's largely been sustained by foreign financial aid.
Right.
But the real long-term game, it seems, might be about resources. Russia already controlled energy reserves, metals, minerals, worth at least $12.4 trillion in the occupied Donbas territories alone.
12.4 trillion just in Donbas.
Just in Donbas. The total value of Ukraine's national raw material stocks, estimated at over $26 trillion.
26 trillion.
Yeah.
That's astronomical.
It is. Lithium and rare earths alone are valued at $11.5 trillion of that. And in fact, Russia has already granted permission to mine lithium in the Shevchenko deposit in occupied Donetsk Oblast.
That's an astounding figure. And, when you connect that to the bigger picture, Ukraine alone holds 22 of the 30 strategically important raw materials for the EU's green transformation.
Right. 22 out of 30.
Yeah. So this isn't just about immediate economic gain for Russia, maybe. It's potentially about controlling long-term European energy security and industrial future. That's a massive geopolitical chess move, isn't it? It really raises the stakes for the entire continent.
Absolutely. And historically, Ukraine was also a main transit route for Russian natural gas to Europe, earning about US $3 billion a year in transit fees, though that revenue has decreased significantly with pipelines bypassing Ukraine now.
True.
And the global markets felt this immediately, didn't they? The initial escalation back in Crimea in 2014 caused Russian and European stock markets to tumble. The Russian ruble hit all-time lows.
Mm-hmm. And we all remember the wheat and grain prices surging because Ukraine is such a major exporter. The economic ripples of this conflict are truly global. They impact supply chains, commodity prices, far, far beyond the immediate region.
No question. Okay, so that brings us to the international responses, which have been, well, a complex dance of diplomacy, aid, pressure. But a major variable now is the foreign policy of the second Trump administration. That's introduced some highly unpredictable shifts.
Yeah, the Trump administration's approach, it really represents a significant departure from, let's say, previous foreign policy norms. It's added layers of complexity and at times definite tension to the international response.
So from the outset, President Trump vowed to conclude the war swiftly and also reduce U.S. financial aid to Ukraine.
Right, that was a key promise.
His Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, even stated that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders was, quote, unrealistic, and that NATO membership for Ukraine was not a realistic outcome.
Setting expectations very differently.
Very differently. Then in February 2025, Trump held highly productive phone calls with both Putin and Zelensky, agreeing to immediate negotiations.
Okay.
But interestingly, some initial meetings involving U.S., Saudi, and Russian officials to develop a framework for these negotiations sometimes excluded Ukraine entirely.
Excluded Ukraine from talks about Ukraine. That would certainly raise eyebrows among allies.
It did, and it immediately fueled concerns, highlighting a shift towards maybe a more transactional, unilateral approach that seemed to bypass traditional diplomatic channels.
Yeah, that tracks with some of the broader criticisms.
It certainly did. And then there was this highly controversial proposed Ukrainian minerals deal that emerged.
Yes, the minerals deal.
Where the Trump administration suggested the U.S. gain 50% ownership of Ukraine's natural resource revenues as, quote, payment for U.S. support.
50% as payment, that's bold.
President Zelensky reportedly rejected this, called it regrettable, and reiterated that a grant is not a debt.
Understandable position from his side.
And Trump also made some contentious public statements around this time, seeming to blame Ukraine for the invasion, stating, you should have never started it, you could have made a deal.
Wow, okay.
He also questioned Zelensky's legitimacy, calling him a dictator without elections, which, echoed Kremlin narratives. This was widely criticized by U.S. allies as potentially undermining a key partner.
That kind of rhetoric, yeah, it can significantly undermine an ally's standing and, frankly, play directly into an adversary's narrative. Creates real friction within alliances.
It definitely sent shockwaves. This all kind of culminated in a highly contentious, televised bilateral meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office on February 28, 2025.
I remember seeing clips of that. Tense.
Very tense. It ended abruptly. No resolution, no signing of that minerals agreement. Reports indicate that Trump and Vice President Vance reportedly criticized, made accusations, even raised their voices at Zelensky.
Not exactly standard diplomatic protocol.
Not at all. And Russia, perhaps unsurprisingly, praised the outcome of that meeting.
Of course.
Following this meeting, Trump ordered an indefinite pause on all U.S. military aid to Ukraine.
Indefinite pause. Wow.
Impacting over $1 billion in arms and ammunition, and even paused intelligence sharing.
That decision must have created a critical vulnerability for Ukraine, just intense pressure for a resolution when they needed sustained support. It really tested the resilience of the Ukrainian defense, I imagine.
No doubt. Now, that aid suspension was eventually lifted after Ukraine agreed to a U.S. proposed 30-day ceasefire in March 2025, though Russia initially rejected it.
Okay, so aid tied to a ceasefire agreement.
Seems so. The U.S. later brokered a limited 30-day ceasefire in March 2025, specifically pausing strikes on Black Sea and energy infrastructure. But then, in another significant policy reversal in July 2025.
Another shift.
Yeah. Trump approved more weapons for Ukraine, announced he would send Patriot air defense missile systems, though specified they were to be financed and reimbursed by NATO and EU allies.
Interesting. So U.S. supplying, but allies paying.
That was the announcement. He also threatened 100% tariffs on countries buying Russian oil if Russia didn't agree to a ceasefire within 50 days. So this back and forth, it really illustrates the complex, often unpredictable nature of the U.S. approach during this period.
Unpredictable is definitely the word. And what about NATO spending during all this?
Well, the NATO Secretary General announced a target of considerably more than 3% of national GDP for defense spending, while the Trump administration was calling for 5%. So continued pressure there.
Right. So given these, let's call them shifts from the U.S., how have other nations reacted, both to the Trump administration's moves and just the overall conflict?
Other international responses have been varied, but pretty significant too. NATO members actually began training the Ukrainian army way back after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. That was a clear signal of long-term commitment then.
Right, that groundwork was laid early.
Many countries imposed international sanctions against Russia, of course, and the International Criminal Court, the ICC, opened investigations into war crimes. They even issued arrest warrants for Russian officials, including President Putin, for alleged crimes.
Which is a major step, symbolically and potentially legally.
Huge. The UN General Assembly adopted resolutions deploring Russia's aggression, notably with a 141-5 vote back in March 2022, demanding withdrawal.
Strong international consensus there, at least initially.
Initially, yes. However, kind of highlighting the divergence we talked about, the U.S. notably voted against a February 2025 UN General Assembly resolution that condemned Russia's invasion.
Voted against. Okay, that does showcase a continued divergence from many allies on certain diplomatic fronts under that administration.
Exactly. Now, while the human and economic costs are just devastating, the technological evolution of this conflict, particularly with drones, this offers a glimpse into the future of warfare, unlike anything we've really seen before.
Indeed. I mean, the shift we're seeing is profound. Drones aren't just, supplemental tools anymore. Our sources show them becoming primary actors, fundamentally altering battlefield dynamics, strategic capabilities. It really changes the calculus for both sides, turning the skies into this incredibly unpredictable arena.
Absolutely. Our sources describe this thing called Operation Spider's Web.
Right.
A bold, really unprecedented deep strike drone operation executed by the Ukrainian Security Service, the SBU, within Russian territory.
Inside Russia, yeah, that was significant.
18 months in the making.
Yeah.
117 drones launched from concealed positions inside Russia itself.
Incredible coordination.
These drones struck 5 key Russian air bases: Belaya, Dyagilevo, Ivanovo-Severny, Olenia, and Ukrainka.
Hitting strategic assets.
It's exactly. Yeah. Ukrainian officials claim the attack destroyed or damaged over 40 aircraft, including critical Tu-95 and Tu-22M strategic bombers and those A-50 early warning planes.
That's a major blow, if accurate.
Right. Now, the Kremlin downplayed the impact, naturally, but satellite imagery and open-source intelligence suggest the damage was far more extensive.
OSINT doesn't lie, usually.
And the ingenuity here is remarkable, too. Apparently, the drones were hidden in wooden structures, transported by trucks, allowing them to be positioned close to their targets without detection before launch.
That showcases a really advanced asymmetric warfare capability, doesn't it? It allows Ukraine to hit these high-value targets deep behind enemy lines, even without a traditional air force, sort of evening the playing field in unexpected ways. But it's not just about these larger deep-strike drones, is it?
No, it's not. There's this deadly new weapon emerging. The fiber optic drone.
Ah, the fiber optic ones. Explain those.
Okay, so this technology is incredibly significant because unlike traditional drones that rely on radio signals which can be jammed, right?
Right, vulnerable to electronic warfare.
These are literally connected by a fiber optic cable spooled out behind them. Imagine trying to jam a phone call that's, like, wired directly. You can't.
Okay, got it. A physical connection.
Exactly. That direct physical link makes them immune to electronic interference. It renders them almost impossible to defend against using conventional jamming tactics. That has monumental implications for precision targeting.
Wow. So EW countermeasures are useless against them.
Pretty much. Both Ukraine and Russia are now racing to produce them. Now, there are limitations currently. The fiber optic equipment limits flight time to maybe 15-20 minutes, and the range is under a mile.
Okay, so short range, short duration for now.
For now. But that immunity to jamming makes them a game changer for certain precision strikes. And we're also seeing FPV, first-person view drones, playing a huge role.
Yeah, the small, agile ones.
Right. For precision strikes against bunkers, hidden shelters, armored targets. There's even footage, apparently, showing a North Korean missile launcher completely destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone, reportedly with its crew still inside.
Devastatingly effective at the tactical level.
These small, agile drones are just redefining combat at that tactical level. They're accessible and highly effective.
So looking deeper at this whole conflict, it's clear the origins, the ongoing dynamics. They stem from these deep historical and geopolitical factors, and they shape not only the battlefield, but also these technological and diplomatic developments we've been discussing.
That's right. Our sources highlight several key drivers, at least from Russia's perspective. There's a long-standing desire to control Ukraine, viewing it as a vital part of its historical sphere of influence.
The near abroad concept.
Exactly. There's also Russia's view of itself as a great power that feels it must resist what it sees as encroachment on its borders. And, maybe fundamentally, the perceived threat of a democratic Ukraine, right next door to Russia's authoritarian regime. That seems a core concern for the Kremlin.
A potential bad example for their own population.
Could be. Additionally, NATO expansion is consistently cited by Russia as a cause. They argue they feel encircled, threatened by the alliance's eastward growth.
And on that point, you really have to consider how narratives and information control play just a massive role here, especially when the stakes feel so high for national identity and perceived security on both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Russia, for instance, uses these extensive disinformation campaigns, falsely claiming Ukraine's government is neo-Nazi, using that as a justification for the invasion.
A narrative pushed heavily from the start.
And domestically, Russian state media is heavily censored. There are severe penalties for what authorities decide is fake news about the military or the conflict. It creates this deeply controlled information environment within Russia, shaping public perception and trying to maintain support for the war.
Yeah, controlling the story is crucial in modern conflict.
And what's particularly striking, according to our sources, is the role of the Russian Orthodox Church, which has fully thrown its weight behind the war. It's actively deeming it a holy war, their words, to defend Holy Russia from what they call the Satanism of the West.
Framing it in spiritual, almost apocalyptic terms.
Exactly. This religious backing provides a profound moral and, well, spiritual justification for the conflict within Russia. It elevates it beyond just a geopolitical struggle into a kind of spiritual crusade that significantly influences public opinion and likely recruitment efforts, too.
That's not just a political narrative, then. It's a deeply ingrained cultural and religious one being leveraged.
Very
powerful.
Very powerful indeed. So, okay, we've unpacked a conflict marked by just immense human suffering, a global scramble for vital resources, diplomacy twisted by new geopolitical realities, and these incredible technological advancements. What really stands out to you from this deep dive?
Well, I think we've really seen how that strategic pursuit of natural resources, that $26 trillion figure, intersects with a shifting global power dynamic, and that's exemplified by the intricate and, frankly, sometimes contradictory policies of the Trump administration we discussed. And then the sheer scale of casualties, potentially hitting 1 million, alongside the emerging dominance of drone warfare, it just signals a profound transformation in how conflicts are fought and how we need to understand them. It really forces us to consider the long-term implications of these tactical and strategic shifts, not just on maps, but on human lives and global stability.
Yeah, well said. This war isn't just about territory, is it? It's really about the future of international norms, the role of powerful nations, and the very nature of warfare itself.
Absolutely.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to consider. In an era where information can be weaponized so easily, and battlefields are increasingly defined by autonomous or semi-autonomous technology, how do we, as informed citizens, ensure accountability? And how do we promote a more stable future amidst such profound shifts in global power and conflict?